I was raised by my mother and grandmother. North Carolina is home to me, although we moved around a lot when I was younger. My grandmother had also obtained custody of my cousin, so growing up together, we considered ourselves sisters. When I was a young girl, my mother got financing on a brand new trailer and put it on a few acres of land. We were so excited. Strangely, some odd things started to happen in our new home. It wasn't the first time I had dealt with the paranormal, but it was the first time I had encountered very negative spirits. I remember several occasions when they would leave us alone at the house just long enough to run to the store or something. We would be talking and goofing off, doing what kids do, when we started hearing what sounded like my mom's full-size van pull in the driveway. We heard two doors shut and what sounded like my mother and grandmother getting out of the van and talking while doing so. We heard this talking all the way up to the door. What we never could figure out, though, is what the voices were saying. They always seemed so muffled. The very first time this happened, we were excited that they were back, hoping they had junk food in their hands. My sister and I ran to the door. There was no doubt in our minds that they were back. Problem was, as soon as the door opened, the voices stopped. It would become an eerie, dead silence. No one was at the neighbor's house, no cars in the driveway. When this happened, no one seemed to be around. This happened on and off the entire time we lived there. We felt like we were being watched almost constantly. One night, I got up to use the restroom. Our room was at the end, so we had to walk through the house to get to it. I had never been scared of the dark before, so I never turned on the lights. Normally, the moon was bright enough to light up the trailer, as there were only a couple trees in the yard. So there I was, half asleep and sitting on the toilet relieving myself, when I suddenly felt I was being watched. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and at that same moment, I was watching what was watching me. A tall, dark, thin shadow of a person was standing in the shower. I could see the entire entity: hands, arms, legs, head, neck. It was right there. There just weren't any features. It was so still. I could feel very negative energy. I yanked up my pants and ran as fast as I could back through the house. As I was running, I heard something that scares the life out of me to this day. It was laughing at me. Maybe because I was trying to run away from it, or maybe it just liked scaring people. I ran in my bedroom and threw the covers over my head. I was terrified. This story still frightens me, and I don't tell very many people about it, but the questions I ask myself scares me even more. My grandmother's bed was right next to the bathroom. I always woke her up for comfort if something was wrong or I'd had a bad dream. But that night, I didn't. Why? Also, it never even crossed my mind to turn on the bathroom light. But what would I have seen if I had? Would it have been there still? Would it still have been just a shadow? My cousin and I walked around that whole development. We made friends with the other kids. We had so many great adventures. We had experiences almost everywhere we went. On one walk in particular, we weren't very far from the house. I heard chains dragging behind us on the asphalt. The sound was faint at first, and I asked my sister if she'd heard it. She told me she hadn't, so we kept on walking. Well, it kept getting louder and sounded like it was right behind us. She started hearing it too before too long. Her face was pale white, and I knew mine had to be also. We mustered all the bravery inside of us and stopped walking, turned around, looked behind us. The noise stopped, everything eerily still and silent. We started walking again, and it started up again. We did this a few times. Each time we looked back and stopped walking, the sound would stop, then start again when we'd continue. Finally, we got spooked and ran home. We learned later in life that the development in slavery days was a southern plantation that had a huge slave population. The slaveholders there were some of the worst kind. Oh, the goosebumps I got when I heard this. You know what, though? It all makes sense now. The pieces to the puzzle finally fit, and we now have answers to the questions we had since we were kids.